Hi and welcome. If you're planning to visit Colombia, especially the Tolima region, this video will give you some useful advice before your trip. And when we visit a new country or region, we usually notice the most visible aspects of its culture first. For example, we can see the food, listen to music, observe the way people dress, and hear the language and accent. However, culture is much deeper than we can immediately see. For example, a foreigner may notice that people eat traditional dishes or listen to traditional music, but they may not immediately understand like the values and the social meanings behind these practices.
However, culture is much deeper than what we can see at first. To understand this, we can use the idea of the cultural iceberg. Above the surface, we find elements such as food, music, dance, language, and celebrations. But underneath the surface, there are also values, beliefs, social practices, behaviors, and the way people understand their own identity. This is why this guide it is only about what you can see in Tolima, but it's also about some important aspects you should keep in mind when interacting with local people.
One important aspect of Tolima's culture is sharing traditions with other people. Food, music, and celebrations are spaces where families and communities come together and strengthen their relationships. One of the best known examples is the celebration of the San Juan and San Pedro festivities. However, there are some other traditions that are also part of the cultural identity of the region. One example is Plátano Paso, a much less well known culinary tradition from Tolima. This type of traditional preparation reflects the region's relationship with its local products, gastronomy, and costumes that have been passed down through generations. As a foreigner, learning about these less well known traditions can help you discover that Tolima's culture goes far beyond its most famous symbols.
Another important aspect is the way people share food. In many families in Tolima, cooking is an activity that requires time, dedication, and care. Therefore, when someone prepares food for you, it is important to appreciate the gesture. For example, if someone offers you a traditional dish such as lechona or tamal tolimense, try not to reject it immediately. Of course, nobody is forced to eat something they don't want or cannot eat, but rejecting food is a rude way can be interpreted as a disrespecting the effort of the person who prepares it. It is also better to avoid leaving large amount of food on your plate, especially when you know it was prepared especially for you. A good option is serve yourselves as an amount that you can actually eat. If you don't like something, express it respectfully.
If we go deeper into the less visible part of the cultural iceberg, we find values, beliefs, and identity. In Tolima, cultural identity is strongly connected to traditions, gastronomy, celebrations, and especially music. Traditional music has an important place in Tolima's culture. Musical expressions such as bambuco and rajaleñas are part of the region's cultural heritage. For many people, listening to this music is not simply about enjoying a song, it can also represent a connection with their story and identity.
However, this does not mean that people from Tolima only listen to traditional music. Although there is a strong sense of pride in the region's traditional music, people are also open to other musical genres that you can find. People who enjoy bambuco and rajaleñas, whereas also listen to salsa, vallenato, reggaeton, rock, pop, or another style of music.
Language is also an important part of cultural identity. Although Spanish is spoken throughout Colombia, every region has different ways of communicating, including variations in accent, pronunciation, vocabulary, and certain expressions. Tolima also has linguistic characteristics that can be different for those of other regions of the country. As a foreigner, you may hear words or expressions that you can understand at first. This is completely normal because learning a language is not only about knowing its grammar. It is also about understanding the way people use it in their everyday lives.
Instead of explaining this difference only with words, we're going to show to show you a video with some examples of language accents and some expressions of the region. Pay attention to the vocabulary, pronunciation, and the way the people communicate because these elements are also part of their region's cultural identity.
Tenemos una forma muy particular de hablar y nos sentimos orgullosos. Pere tantico y le cuento. En el Tolima no decimos niño o niña. En el Tolima decimos
Guámbito o Guipa.
En el Tolima no decimos usted está equivocado. En el Tolima decimos
Está culimbo.
En el Tolima no decimos uy, no puede ser. En el Tolima decimos
Eco, mano.
En el Tolima no decimos papá. En el Tolima decimos
Taita.
En el Tolima no decimos son las 8. En el Tolima decimos
Son las 8.
En el Tolima no decimos botella. En el Tolima decimos
Timbo, mano.
En el Tolima no decimos tonto. En el Tolima decimos
Mucho atembao.
En el Tolima no decimos mucha plata. En el Tolima decimos
Un jurgo de plata.
As we could see, the way people speak can also reflect the identity of a community. If you hear an expression that you don't understand, don't be afraid to ask what it means.
The important thing is to approach the language with curiosity and respect. Accent and local expressions should not be a reason to make people fun. Instead, they are an opportunity to better understand the cultural diversity of Tolima.
When visiting Tolima, it's important to avoid believing every stereotype about its people. One common stereotype is that people from Tolima are bad-tempered or always sharing. However, this idea doesn't really represent the entire population. As in any other region, people's ways of speaking can be different, and some people may have stronger or more direct way of expressing themselves. But this doesn't necessarily mean that they are angry or aggressive. It is important to get to know people before judging their personality simply because of the way they speak.
Another stereotype is to associate all people from Tolima with that excessive alcohol consumption. This idea may be partly related to the region's large celebrations and to their representative products such as aguardiente tapa roja, which has a strong connection with Tolima festivities and identity. However, it is important not to assume that everyone is an alcoholic or that every celebration revolves around alcohol. The festivities also include music, dancing, food, family gatherings, and different cultural expressions. Reducing an entire region to alcohol consumption is just a limit, as reducing its culture to only like a lechona or San Juanero.
When we talk about traditions in Tolima, many people think of the San Juan and San Pedro festivities. These celebrations are one of the most representative cultural expressions of the region. During this period, you can find music, dancing, traditional clothing, parades, food, and many activities related to Tolima's culture. However, Tolima has other important traditions that also allow us to understand the identity and beliefs of these people.
One of them is the celebration of Corpus Christi, which in some communities is celebrated with great dedication and commitment. This tradition shows the importance that religions beliefs can have in a cultural life of their religion. People prepare for the celebration and participate actively, showing their connection to their tradition and their faith. As a foreigner, if you have the opportunity to witness a religious celebration, remember that is not simply an event to watch or photograph. For many people, this practice have a deep spiritual and personal meaning. Therefore, it is important to behave respectfully, follow the guidelines of the place, and understand that you are a visitor witnessing a tradition that has a deep meaning for a community.
In conclusion, visiting Tolima means encountering a culture full of visible elements such as lechona, tamal tolimense, the sanjuanero, traditional music, and major celebrations. But as we have seen through the cultural iceberg, behind these elements, there are also social practices, values, beliefs, in particular ways of understanding the region's identity. As a visitor, you can enjoy the culture by trying new foods, listening to music, participating in celebrations, and learning new expressions. But it's also important to understand that these practices have a meaning for the people who are part of them.
Our main advice is to arrive in Tolima with curiosity but also with respect, avoiding stereotypes such as thinking that everyone from Tolima is bad tempered, always shooting, or alcoholic. And do not rudely reject food that is offered to you and try to appreciate the time and dedication behind this traditional meal. Also, remember that Tolima's identity can be found in both traditional music and modern musical tastes in major celebrations such as San Juan y San Pedro, and in other religion traditions like Corpus Christi.